second week after our summer break, and we're coming at you with episode 85 of VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or you've downloaded for a listen somewhere, just leave us a nice review. That would be great. And please subscribe to the VIP YouTube channel. I'm Steve Lillis, and with me, as always, in the top corner there is John Evans. You okay, John?
Yeah, pretty good, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. And a special guest this week, a bloke we only get on once a year because he's a bit Billy Big Banana now with the DAZN and all that. And it's a bloke none of us see him up on there, but look at how smug he is. We love him, really. He's my former Box Nation. He was my cousin on the couch at Box Nation when Stephen was across from us. Former WBO Super-Featherweight champion, Barry Jones. How are you, Barry?
I'm okay, mate. I loved your intro. Coming at you. You sound like a DJ.
Oh,
coming at you. We're coming at you.
Cleopatra coming at you.
I think of them Box Nation days and that couch, mate. Why are you always the first person I think of, you know?
They were good days, mate. We'll never have those again.
And I'm really pleased to see you getting airtime on the DAZN and being used. Top stuff. Really good. Yeah. I'm not just saying that because I'm your mate. Either.
I think once Maya Jama left, there was a void of no disrespect to Laura Woods, but of sexiness, and so they were looking at someone, trying to be more diverse. So they wanted someone who was sexy, but not traditionally sexy, more uniquely sexual, like myself. And I've turned into Barry Patel, haven't I? Prince Barry Patel all of a sudden.
Well, you know what? You're going to talk about Arab boxing later. You've got that Yemeni in you as well.
I have, mate.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, see?
Yeah. With Barry on there now, it could easily pass for a different type of subscription channel as well, couldn't it?
I tell you what I'm looking for. At night when I'm bored, I'll go through OnlyFans looking for the Barry Jones account. I can't find it. He must do it under some pseudonym or something.
That's right, yeah.
All right. All right, then, fellas. We'll crack on. And Johnny, you've got your clock. And
everything's ready. Yeah, ready to go.
Ready. And round one, over to you, John. And what's the delay?
Yeah, the delay with hearing rumours, aren't we, constantly that Crawford and Spence's, it's about to be announced. And recently we've also had Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia apparently close to being announced. And we're getting no word, are we? So I know fighters always say, and people involved in boxing always say, if two fighters want a fight enough, it happens. No matter what anyone else says, the two fighters make it happen. And I'm just starting to wonder whether these fighters do actually want it to happen. If someone had told me that Terence Crawford wouldn't jump at the chance to fight Errol Spence after leaving Top Rank, I would have called him a liar, because I thought Crawford was all about it. But we're not hearing any words from either guy, really. Are we saying it's imminent? I'm starting to get a little bit worried, because those are two super fights. It's been a good year for boxing, but those two could really push it over the edge. And I just hope, particularly Spence and Crawford, aren't past the peak when we get it, because I think that's a genuine super fight for the era.
I agree, and I think I was thinking about this today about fights. It all comes down to money, egos and money, because you got Roman Gonzalez and Estrada boxing for the third time, and all those flyweights, light flies, and super flies have all fought each other in like an 8-year period. Easy fights to make because the money's not as big, and that's so it has to just be money. Like they all want to. No fighter's afraid to fight the other fighter, but it's greed. I would say it's greed. They'll all get paid mega money, but they're arguing over who's going to get an extra 2%. I understand. Listen, I've never been to that level of financial gain, but it's clearly money, which equates to greed. Because if Roman Gonzalez, one of the greatest fighters of this modern era, can fight his rivals on a regular basis, let's be honest, then why can't Spence or Crawford and Spence box each other now in their early to almost mid-30s before they're past their peak?
Yeah, you know what? This is with Crawford. He hasn't boxed for 11 months. He's 34 years of age. And, if he has say that fight happens in another 8 months, he's in towards his 36th year, whatever. I just don't get why he's laying dormant for 11 months at this stage of his career. He's now talking. I saw a quote from him last week. If this doesn't come off soon, I want to fight Jamel Charlo at super welter. it's just like, you know, he's 34. You know, he's in a pro a long time, champion a long time. And Ryan Garcia Tank, that was the one perhaps I never took so seriously. It's one of those you think might be close, but miles apart. And I saw Oscar De La Hoya at the weekend admitting how hard it is doing business with Al Heyman regarding his fighters. So I think that fight, you can just scratch that one for now. But Spence and Crawford, as you say, the big danger is they're going to meet when they're past their peak. And as you say, you know, they're arguing over maybe 2%. But when you're earning $10, $15 million, what's $300,000? Round two, Barry, a subject we did touch on last night, but it's good to get your opinion. Arabian Nights.
Yeah, Arabian Nights. You know, I just think, you know, with boxing, you know, obviously Jeddah, not the first time we've been to Saudi Arabia for fights, and also with Bivol boxing, Ramirez in Abu Dhabi, and of course there's been an influx of a few fights. Floyd Mayweather's doing an exhibition in Dubai in November. Is that where all the big fights are going? Is that a sign of, you know, not just a short-term thing, but a long-term thing? Because fighters are getting paid more than ever before, of course, but that money's got to come from somewhere. Some of these fights are not maybe worthy of the money they're getting. Even talking about, you know, Joshua with the box Usyk, or Joshua the box, you know, Fury the box Usyk, or Fury the box Joshua. Again, there's talk that has to go to the Middle East, and I just think what happens to the action, we lose fans because you're only watching sport on TV. We've already lost working class heroes. I've said for a long time that, you know, possibly Ricky Hatton could very well be the last working class hero in any sport. I don't watch other sports. I'm talking on my back end. Certainly in boxing, because, you know, we don't see our stars anymore. And no, we're not going to get to actually see them live fight because they're going to be boxing in the other part of the world where the money is readily available. And I think it's like when PBC first came on board. It's good for the fighters out of the gate first, but in the longevity of it, I'm not quite sure it's sustainable, or whether the sport not dies but loses a lot of a fan base, because you fall in love with boxing when you go to a live fight, like I did, like you all did. Watching on telly is fantastic. When you go to a live fight and it's great, a York Hall. You know, one of my greatest memories in recent years was Liam McKenzie versus Chella Renda at the York Hall. Yeah. I watched it through armpits because I'm short. I literally watched it through people's armpits. It was packed out. One of the greatest fights I've seen. Fantastic. Now, if I've never seen boxing before, that was my introduction. I'm in love with the sport. I'm going every chance I can get. I'm buying a ticket to go and watch the fight. And if you can never go to a fight, you're never going to fall in love with the sport. And that's what's a worry for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I hope it doesn't, because I said this last week, I hope it doesn't become the new home of boxing, these countries in the Middle East, not because of political reasons or anything like that. I want fighters to earn money. It's the accessibility to fans. Those trips to Vegas are things that live in the memory. Trips to Saudi Arabia might do for the fights, but not the trip. And there's more to it than just a fight for these fans when they go on these trips. Trips to Vegas were once in a lifetime for some of these guys.
Everything has a shelf life as well, doesn't it? And if fighters go to Saudi Arabia for 2 years, then the money stops and you've lost the fan base. Trying to build back up from nothing is going to be really difficult, isn't it?
Round three, you what? This could be overtaken by what could happen in the next 24 hours. We're recording this at about 7:15 on a Monday night. This news broke about 2 hours ago. Eubank Senior saying he's claiming he's going to pull his son out of the Conor Benn fight because, you know, he mentioned he lost a son was it last year or the year before, which was a tragedy for the Eubank family. And now he's doing this because he's worried about the weight and his son could get killed. Look, I think the fight goes on. I think there's a rehydration thing to try and negotiate that. I think he does the 157 easily. I said that last week. Well, not easily, but he does it as comfortable as you can. He weighed 160 for Liam Williams, wearing Nike Jordans, whatever they're called, jeans, belt, a big watch. So he makes that weight. Maybe there is the rehydration issue. But I think we're at the stage now where the promoters, Eddie Hearn and Wasserman, or Callie Sowland, whoever's there, the front for that, they've got to come clean on what these hydration clauses are, because people are buying tickets on the back of seeing a great fight. people are going to buy a pay-per-view from DAZN. It's going to be a massive success, I'm sure, for their first boxing pay-per-view, shall we say. The YouTubers the other week. And I just think they should come clean on what the rehydration clauses are so people know what they're being sold.
Yeah, I agree with you, because especially for gambling purposes, I'm not a gambler, for gambling purposes, because that will have a massive impact in who you think is going to win the fight. I agree with you, Steve. I think making the weight for Eubank will be difficult, but that's not the issue. It's putting the weight back on, and also there's talk that the second weigh-in on the day won't be 8 o'clock in the morning like some of the others. It'll be sort of like 11 o'clock to midday. Well, that means he's making weight twice. Now that's a danger in itself. So the fact that Chris Senior has mentioned that, Chris Senior, they're master of saying whatever, of saying nothing, saying lots but saying nothing. But the fact that he mentioned Sebastian makes you think that he genuinely doesn't want his son to fight. If he hadn't mentioned the past of his other boy, I'd just go, this is a ploy. Build interest, intrigue, because he can't stop Chris Jr. No. He's a grown man, do what he wants. He can't stop him. And so, he just, don't fight, son. Okay, Dad. Well, you give me 6 million, 3 million, whatever he's getting for the 2 million, I don't know. But, that's not going to happen. But once he mentioned his other boy, he wouldn't, I can't believe any father would mention him unless he was genuinely worried about his other son's health. But yeah, I do think you're right. The rehydration clause needs to be open to all. And then you can assess a fight for gambling purpose, and also for also who you think's going to win the fight from that.
Oh, sorry, John, we never got you
don't
there.
worry about us. We were talking
over
about
to you, John, and a man called Kane who's very able.
Yeah, and some fighters, you watch them and they jump off a screen off you, and then some fighters you speak to them and you see how they act, and they jump off a little bit more. And I spoke to Andrew Kane for the first time last week. And Andrew Kane is real as it comes. And I like those type of fighters. And rather than just talk about it, I'll read you a quote of what he said. It's going on 32 Red this week. So he said, "I'm real, aren't I? What you see is what you get. I'm not fake. I'm here to make my life better. And all these other bantamweights are here to stop it." He said, a lot of them, there's a lot of pressure involved in boxing. They try and pass it off like it's just a sport. But when it comes down to it, it's not a sport, is it? Is it fuck? It's a fight. I'm fighting for my kids' lives and my family lives. I come from nothing and I'm just trying to better myself. And you don't get quotes like that from many bantamweights in Britain. And Kane's fighting Eric Morales, his brother, this week in his 10th fight. Morales has had 35. He's fought for a world title. He's a knockout puncher. If Kane comes through this and he got that attitude and he gets these other British fights, he could be a little bit of a star, I think. He sort of, Richie just epitomised the boxing story for almost every boxing. You come from nothing relatively, and boxing is your way out. You found something you're good at, and you focus on that and try and get yourself. Though most of us, especially as small fighters, don't really believe we're going to be a wealthy fighter. Don't really believe we're going to be rich. But we're thinking, people think, you weren't successful, but you go in, I live in a middle class area, or I bought my house in the street I grew up in, whatever it is. But that's, for a lot of people, especially Andrew Kane and the like, you're never going to get that. Never going to get to afford to buy a house, or never going to get to move out to a slightly nicer area, which is still not the nicest. But that's a success story, because most boxers where they grow up from is as poor or as poverty stricken or as rough or as tough or as hard or as violent or whatever as you could as an environment as you could find. And and you do hear from real hard, big, one eye, scars on their face, them type of fighters. You hear from them, but you don't very rarely. You're right. You don't very rarely hear it from a smaller guy. Well, funnily enough, you just talking about houses. Then he said, "My family aren't comfortable." He said, "When my family are comfortable, I can chase my own dreams. But I'm in a 2-up, 2-down in Dingle, and I want a fucking mansion for them."
But you know what? That quote also turned me on. It is a lovely quote, and I love the thing about the 2-up, 2-down, and one in the mansion.
Yeah.
But you know what? It tells me something how fearless he is, and he come into this game with nothing, and he isn't scared of going out with it with nothing either. I don't think, which means how far he's willing to go in that ring.
Yeah, he's genuinely.
That tells me that about him a lot as well. And by the way, I saw him when he boxed Stephen Jackson. Oh, hey, gotta stop. Round 5, Ex-Boxers Association, Barry. A really interesting topic, this.
Yeah, they're dying off. Obviously, because people get old. But I mean, like I went to the Welsh Ex-Boxers, and every year the annual Sunday luncheon, and every year it's packed out. And this year it wasn't. I mean, nowhere near. It was less than half the usual crowd. And I drive down from London every year for it. And I don't want a medal for that, but there should be some sort of trophy I get when I turn up. But I don't get one anyway. But there was hardly anybody there. It was really disappointing, and I worry about it. You know, the weekly meetings, no one turns up, and it's my generation, the 40s and 50-year-olds who've been retired for anywhere from 10 to 20 years, 30 years, maybe close. And why aren't we all turning up? Because it's a community, it's a lost community, and I think, and they're very important for not for every fighter, but some fighters struggle mentally, socially as well. Because remember, some fighters been a star in a little world for 15 minutes of fame, and then it all crumbles. They're left with no money, and it's a pressure. We've seen people like Nicky Booth and others, not be able to cope with it and struggle. And these ex-boxers associations help so much, but people just don't make an effort. People should be picking people up. It's like the buddy system, whatever they call it in America. And I think the fact that it was such a poor showing worried me. I'm fine because I'm still involved in the sport, so I don't need it right now. I might need it in 10 years' time, but there's other fighters who do, and I think the more people go, the more other people want to come. And it was a worry. They got the Hall of Fame next week. That'll be packed. That's an occasion. That's an award ceremony. That'll be packed. It's a 3-course meal, whatever. It'll be a fantastic day. But the smaller associations are slowly dying off, I feel, and I don't know what we do to rectify that. I don't know whether there's some sort of not empathy. I don't know what they're looking for. That current boxing people, maybe a promoter. It's always like everyone brings a promoter, but somebody involved in the sport now needs to maybe help these organizations flourish somehow. I don't know how you do that.
You know,
I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just wanted to try and get the message out that these ex-boxer associations are so important for people, but they're dying out because people are not aware or be able to get to them, not being used enough.
Once you told me this topic today, I gave Ian Harrison a ring at Barry. He runs the Manchester one, along with Eddie Copeland. And Ian was telling me, I said, how do you do now? And he said, they go you bear in mind Manchester, a big city.
Yeah.
They get they go once a month. They have about 20 to 25 show up.
That's good. He
thinks it should be more. He'd like more. He was saying like Leeds and London are the only two he knows of that are really flourishing. He says something like Liverpool, it's really struggling. But you think a city, I think a lot of it isn't so much fighters of your generation, Barry. I think it's also fighters of the current day. Because they've got so much, there's more things going on in life to them to pick from than go and meet up with their. I think people like John Case goes, as a recent pro, goes to the Manchester, but there's not many recent pros. A lot of them who go to the Manchester one are from your generation, Barry. That they're not.
Went way over there, but it's an important one, that, isn't it? So
yeah, it was excellent. I don't know your opinion, John, if you wanted to say something next.
I agree.
Should be brought out here, I think.
Yeah, it should be. Maybe you don't hear much of it, do you? I think the people that go, if you see what I mean. But you don't really see many adverts for it. I don't know if it's word of mouth. Maybe they could advertise it more, promote it more. But I think you're right, Steve. I think people just have a lot going on now, don't they?
Yeah, I just think 25 people for a city like Manchester, once a month, 25 ex-boxers. He's quite happy with it, Ian is. He's a lovely fella. He trains a few fighters. He had a few fights himself, I think, in the 80s. He's quite happy. I just think that's quite poor. That's just my opinion.
You could get 25 from Collyhurst and Moston.
Yeah, I think that's disappointing. That's my opinion.
The charity Ringside, I forget the name of it, Ringside Trust.
Ringside Charitable Trust. They're in London.
Fantastic. They're fantastic what they're trying to do, and they are helping people out. But they took a lot of boxers to Orlando.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I've been asked to go next year.
Brilliant.
But I've said I'll go if I can, if I'm not working. But I think you should invite somebody who, I'm not a rich man, by the way, and you know this, somebody who could never afford to go.
Yeah.
Do you know, I know I've been an ex-world champion, but we're two a penny nowadays, to be honest. Let's be truthful about that. I just think someone who would benefit more than I'll go and I'll do my part if that's what they want, and if it helps bring awareness to it. I can't see what my worth is, but if it's anything, then I'll go. But I think if that's paid for, which it is, then let someone go who needs to go. That might change someone's life, help them better.
Of course,
But boxers struggle. The boxer, people don't realise how bad. Like this ringside care and trust, they've understood how boxers struggle after they retire, like most sportsmen. But most boxers don't end up with any money, so it makes it slightly worse. And I just think that there needs to be something there, and the ex-box associations, I've seen them help the generation older than myself, 2 generations older than myself. I've seen how they were busy, and how they had a nice community, and they stayed in touch because they went once a week or once a month. Sorry, they stayed in touch via phone. Or then Facebook came out, and they stayed in touch via Facebook, and it all helped them. But my generation, and I feel we're the start of the worst of it. We don't converse. We don't mix. No one bothers, and it's not because they're not going to be all in loads of money. I don't know. There's more things that have gone on in our life. We were close, maybe. We didn't have as many fights, so we didn't see each other all the time. Maybe that was what it was. But I think my generation is what ours. We're all roughly the same age-ish. Steve's 25 years older, but still, he looks just young. But I think it's on us. It's our duty, I think, to maybe keep this alive and keep it going, and maybe try and reinvent it in a different way where it becomes a social calendar thing rather than just I'll go there for 10 minutes. Because no one goes. No one was there. I was the only boxer who pretty much won anything. Taylor Bevan was there, by the way. The silver medal Commonwealth Games would have been gold, but he had a hard draw. And he's also technically English, but we've taken him. He's from Southampton, but he's Welsh. But he was there, fantastic. But mainly, there was nobody there. Where before you get Colin Jones and Gavin Rees and Lee Selby and Steve Robinson and other fighters like that. Nobody was there, and they all live close. There's no excuse for it.
But you know what? It's good to hear you on that. It's something you obviously care about, Barry. But I wonder if round 6 now, and I wonder if these two fellas are going to go to the Kazakh Ex-Boxers Association and the Tawana Ex-Boxers Association, Canelo GG3 this weekend. You know what? I fancy Canelo. There's been a lot of criticism of the fight. I fancy Canelo to win. Look, did he win the first 2? But win it this time without any. But you know what? It's still a fight I'm looking forward to, and I don't go for a lot of the criticism it's got. Look, Golovkin didn't look great, particularly in the early stages against Murata. I know it was at middleweight, but it was still a good win away from home. Murata's been a good fight. I think he was in the Olympic bronze. Was he gold in 2012? Yeah. So it's still a great win. And you know what? He's only had 4 fights in the last 4 years. Canelo's been on them procession of title wins and championships, but he's still coming off a loss. And I don't think it's the word. I fancy Canelo to win, but I don't think it's this one-side beatdown I'm reading from a lot of people. I just wanted to get, before we wrap up for the night, your verdict on the fight, fellas.
Go on, John. I've got to shut up.
Oh, yeah, I fancy Canelo big, but you won't get Golovkin in a boring fight. He's one of the greats of the last 30, 40 years. He's a fantastic fighter. So he'll have his moments, but I think Canelo's shown down at middleweight in the last 2 fights, he can take the power, he can absorb it, he can come through it. And I think upper weight, with him being a bit stronger, I think he'll just have too much at this age. But I think it'll be exciting for as long as it lasts. God. Plus, he's that bitterness and spite. We genuinely don't like each other, do they? Golovkin hides it well, Canelo doesn't. And that's going to keep that, even when, if you can imagine Golovkin, it's getting hard for him. He's still going to be spitting venom back, isn't he? And landing whenever he can. So, yeah, as long as it lasts, he'll probably go the distance. But I think it'll be good for it. You're not going to take your eyes off it, are you?
Yeah, I like it. Barry, you've been around. I think both of the first. You did both fights?
Yeah, I did the first 2, and I tried everything to get to this one. I mean, I'm saying I'll get my own flight over and stuff like that. I've tried everything to get to work it. Nobody wanted me to work it. But anyway, I think very rarely in history do you get 2 fighters perfect for each other. and they've been lucky that we've been lucky that they found each other. They're the most perfect fit for a good fight. I think you could wheel them out when they were 75 years of age, and they would still have a good fight. The only difference with this fight, and I agree with you, Steve, and you, John, as well. We all agree that it's going to be a really good fight. It will be just the way they fight, the way they are. But there's a clear winner. There's a clear favourite this time in Canelo. There has to be. I didn't see the huge vulnerabilities that people made out in Golovkin against Murata, but I do think at his age, the first thing to go with is your judgment of speed and distance. And I just think you don't see things as quick. It's only a millisecond, but it's enough for you to you tend to take a shot sometimes. Your neck gets tight, or you just ride it. And when you don't, that's what gives you this. That's shocking. That's what hurts you. And I think he got knocked back a few times just because he didn't see it quick enough. And I think that with Canelo will cause him problems. I think Canelo will stop him. And you theoretically got the two best chins in boxing here, like they're boxing each other, like as they showed in the first two fights. But I think he gets knocked back on his heels too much this time. And I think, and in the second fight, though, I thought Golovkin still won that second fight. Canelo showed he could push him back. A younger, fresher, and more active Golovkin at that second fight. Now, this third fight is going to be a less active, a lot older Golovkin. But there's still been I think he's had 4 fights since that, or 3 fights since the second fight. And Canelo's had 8 fights or 9 fights of sheer quality. The difference in quality that they box, by the way. Golovkin's boxed good opponents, but Canelo's boxed much far superior opposition, I feel. And on a run, he's been busy and active. And the only thing is the loss psychologically. How will the loss affect Canelo? But I think that's and can he adapt? Because he's been an adapting fighter his whole career. And he stopped that. About Callum Smith, he stopped learning from every fight and bringing it into a new fight and just became a bully because it worked for him. If he can revert back to type as he was, Golovkin 1, 2, and 3, and just before that and after that, then this version of the both fighters means Canelo runs away a competitive fight and a great fight, but a clear winner.
Brilliant. Well, I think we're all in agreement there. Is there anything you want to add, John?
No, I was just thinking, Barry, one of my little bugbears at the minute. Barry, you could have just taken a mobile phone or a camera on a stick and gone over to Las Vegas and stood in the line and got your way over there. It's driving me mad, that shit, at the moment.
I do have a YouTube channel. Subscribe. It's Barry. No one watches Barry.com. Fuck off.
And then you could have announced. Then you could have announced on Twitter that you were proud to be going to the event.
I'll just fight.
Don't get me going, John. Don't get me going. You know what?
Come on, Steve, you've got a couple of minutes here. Let's have a rant.
No, I can't. It just does me in all this. I've got press accreditation. You know what? When I go for a shit in the morning after my run and my energy gels, I'm going to say, ran 6 miles. You have a shit better after 6 miles. Don't even go there with me. Fellas, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I could talk to you about that all night, but I've got to get out tonight, I'm afraid. I could chat to you two all night. Barry, thanks very much. John, thanks very much. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back next week. Thank you very much.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.